Welcome to episode 17 of the WordTheatre podcast, your weekly access to the world's finest short stories. My name is Cedar Fox. I am WordTheatre's founder and artistic director.
And I'm Kirsty Peart, UK founder and creative partner. This is the seventh and final week of our 7-episode celebration of Joyce Carol Oates stories, performed by brilliant actors and recorded live with the author in the room.
The 4 stories you will hear today are short gems that each express the anxieties of normal people trying to navigate the modern world. The first 2 were recorded in East Hampton, New York, and the last 2 were performed in Los Angeles the first time we hosted Joyce at WordTheatre.
Her writing has a kind of lyrical fluidity that is simply beautiful. I feel as though all the stories that we've selected lend themselves easily to being performed by actors, which makes total sense, as I've learned that Joyce also writes plays.
To introduce Party, a Pushcart Prize-winning story, we have an actor who has been performing at WordTheatre in Los Angeles and New York since its inception. She is always the first person I ask to read the most technically challenging stories we undertake because she makes it sound easy. Please welcome Dana Delany.
This story is like a runaway train. 3 pages, 1 sentence. I remember the words tumbling one into the other and things quickly unraveling as we learn what's really happening. Joyce writes so that you can see and hear everything clearly. Everyone seems familiar, yet it's almost like a fever dream. And when you truly understand, it's gut-wrenching. I have often thought of the story since that wonderful pushcart benefit in East Hampton, New York, because disappointing as it may seem, it speaks to situations that are all too true.
Judith Lambert was dying at last. She had come home from the medical center for the 5th and final time in how many months? 18, since her cancer was first diagnosed. But the Institute party was scheduled for that night. The handwritten invitations sent out weeks ago, so they were at the party. Judith's many friends and a number of her colleagues from the Bedminster Choir College, where Judith had taught voice for 15 years. How sad, they were saying. How tragic. She is such a young woman, 47, and looks 10 years younger, despite the chemotherapy. Gathered about the long candlelit table were plates of hors d'oeuvres, were set amidst coolly fragrant spring flowers, daffodils, jonquils, hyacinth, taking up Swedish meatballs on toothpicks, jumbo shrimp dipped in Mexicali hot sauce. Take care, the director's wife warns, that sauce is hot. How lovely everything looks tonight, and this wine, this is superb wine. German, is it? And how delicious the stuffed mushrooms. Did you make this yourself, Isabel? Judith Lambert's spring concert last year was a great success, everyone said, and I wasn't able to get to it because I myself had to be out of town. Oh, yes, you missed a lovely concert. Judith sang songs by Schumann, Schubert, Fauré, I think, miniatures, most of them. Such a fine, clear, beautiful voice she had, something plaintive about it, but not a strong voice, of course, not powerful. Once I heard her sing that Mozart aria, Bella Mia Fiamma, and you could tell she'd reached her limit. But she had a haunting voice. It's all such a pity. Judith's daughter was saying, "Mother, please, Mother. Are you awake, Mother?" The bedroom was papered in a floral design, fine-patterned, French silk, lavender, soft green, ivory, matching bedspread, and a thick ivory carpet. Ginny Mullen had visited her the week before. "It is so sad," she said, tears welling in her eyes. Yes, she's changed a great deal now. She looks so frail, so thin. Thank God her daughter's with her, and thank God for morphine. A new couple had just entered the hall, shaking hands with the Institute director, Dr. Max, and his wife, Isabel. Tall, flaxen-haired, sharp-eyed Isabel. If you decline one of her invitations, she will never invite you back. That dinner party Judith gave at Christmas, there must have been 20 of us, and she tried to do it all herself, not even a student to help in the kitchen. Of course, it was a buffet and not so much trouble, but still, And do you know, I never got around to inviting her back. This season has been sheer madness. We're in Minneapolis, and we're in Atlanta, and where else? Los Angeles, of course. I am reminded of a line from a play, or is it a poem? Shall I ever have time to die? The heroine asks. Her doctor said she'd have a year to live with the treatments. I think that was terribly blunt and cruel, don't you? And wrong, by about 6 months, too. She's been taking chemotherapy off and on all this time, and the wonder of it is, her hair, her lovely hair, didn't fall out. Can you imagine Judith without that lovely hair? That lovely red hair. So brave. Such a model of courage, endurance, such a vital attitude towards the future. This cheese is exquisite. Is it some kind of Italian cheese? This is goat cheese. Oh, Mark, you must try it. Her attitude was so positive, it was daunting sometimes, the way she spoke of the future. Plans for next year's concert series at Bedminster and the year after. Mark says it was a necessary blindness, a kind of denial. Where did you get this pâté, Isabel? It's duck, isn't it? Oh, that little store on Charity Street off South Street. You know the one I mean? Oh, yes, I've seen it, but I haven't gone inside. I feel so bad about Judith. That lovely party she gave, and I never invited her back. It's so awkward with a single woman at a sit-down dinner, don't you think? Did I tell you? Mark is flying to Johannesburg on Monday, some sort of confidential government business. I'm concerned there'll be a civil war while he's there, and he won't be able to get out. Judith looked so lovely at the Christmas concert, directing the women's choir. That white dress she wore that looked like an antique dress, full-skirted, flounced, with ruffles at her throat, long sleeves, lacy cuffs. I think it was disguised the fact that she lost so much weight. Oh, just the Messiah, I think, the usual. Oh, yes, it was a shame about Rod leaving her, but it seems to have worked out for the best. Judith was the happiest I've ever seen her after the divorce came through. Oh, there's no bitterness between them that anyone ever noticed, though. There must have been some emotion involved. You can't be married for 20 years without some emotion involved, yes, but the daughter's all grown up. All our children are all grown up. Have you noticed? It has happened so quickly. All our children are grown up, and most of them are moved away. A faint sickle moon was shining through the tall leaded windows of the Institute's main hall, where 100 guests were gathered and a string quartet played in a corner, on a raised platform edged with flowers. In the din of voices, no one could hear the music but the musicians. Good sports from the Bedminster School played briskly on. Something by Beethoven, it sounded like. Is that the moon? Where? In the trees. There. The moon? No, I don't think so. It looks like one of the lights in the parking lot. Mother, said Judith's daughter, can you hear me? Are you awake? Mother, I love you, Judith's daughter said, but it wasn't clear that Judith heard. The skin around her eyes looked stitched. Bruised pouches beneath the eyes. It must be the mask of death, since Judith is dying. But her daughter stands transfixed, unable to judge. I remember Rosalind Lambert when she was a little girl passing plates of hors d'oeuvres at one of our parties, a lawn party it was. Rod and Judith certainly gave the impression of being happily married then. Such an attractive couple. Judith looked like one of those pre-Raphaelite women. You know the ones I mean? Didn't that artist, the one who lived in the Hawley's coach house, paint her? And what became of that painting, I wonder? His new wife is very sweet, they say, though I've never met her. One of his graduate students, evidently. Doesn't time pass swiftly now, and incessantly? They were talking of the new woman's choir director, the blonde young woman from Juilliard, whose husband is assistant dean at the seminary. An attractive young couple, but there's so many attractive young couples these days. Thank you so much, Isabel, for inviting us. Thank you for coming, but isn't it a little early to be leaving? I called Judith last week, but Rosalind said she was sleepy and couldn't be disturbed. She spoke rather sharply to me, I thought. I was a little bit hurt. After all, I've been a friend of Judith's for so long. He was one of the first people Judith told. Max said he bought a case of this by way of that dealer in Pensfield, Bernkostler Dr. Auslease, 1982. Not what you call cheap, but it was a bargain. The funeral will be next week probably, and the memorial service has to be planned, but not until May, I suppose. Did you go to Dr. Emery's memorial? It was fairly well attended, but I was surprised at the people missing you'd have expected to see there. He was so well loved, his students adored him. Oh, well, that's usually the case this time of year. It's madness this time of year. I'm committed to a conference in Geneva next week I wish I could get out of, a week-long session in Tokyo next month, loans and financing for the third world, more of the same thing. The situation is hopeless and getting worse, but don't quote me. Is Judith's daughter with her? No? I thought someone said she was. She is? Oh, I'd heard they'd hired a private nurse. I guess you'd have to in cases like this. Dying at home. Poor Judith, but at least she's in comfortable surroundings. And where is Rod? He wouldn't dare miss the funeral, but he hasn't visited her in a year. He's very big, they say, at La Jolla. Found his niche at last. Did Florence tell you they're having a reception for the French ambassador next week? I hope there's not going to be an awkward conflict with the funeral. Judith closed her skeletal fingers around her daughter's wrist and seemed about to smile, as she so frequently did, though her eyes flashed with panic. But this time she didn't smile. She whispered, "Help me." And her daughter said, "I'm right here, Mother. I'm not going to go away." A faint moon through the window, in the trees beyond the house, hazy like the lamplight in the room, the only light burning, filtered through the fluted, flesh-colored shade. Our new astrophysicist is being wooed by the California Institute of Technology already. Did you hear? It's outrageous. Everyone bids on the stars and no one wants the others. I won't be out of town for the party. This time of year is such madness. Are those dogwood sprays? Apple blossoms? So lovely. Shall I ever have time to die? She wondered. She was staring into a corner of the room where friends with the looks of strangers were talking and laughing loudly. Someday. Yes. Judith's daughter dialed the number she knew by heart and said into the receiver, calm as words said many times, "I think she has died." Yes. A few minutes ago. The funeral will be this week. The memorial service in early May. We'll have to get together with those boring Bedminster people to plan it. At the door, Ginny Mullins squeezed my hand and whispered in my ear, "The invitations should be in the mail by next Friday, but remember, keep the night of May 11 open for us."